Poor girl. Found a Hells Angels missing Harley in a salvage yard. Next day, 101 bikers came. The Harley shouldn't have been there. Maya's fingers were on the cold chrome when a boot crunched glass behind her and a familiar voice said, "Calm as poison." "What the hell are you doing back there?" She froze in a crouch, half hidden between two stacks of crushed cars, her heart punching against her ribs. If she turned too fast, he'd see it on her face, the panic, the guilt, the fact that she'd found something that could get people killed. Break. Belgrave Salvage woke up like a monster clearing its throat. Chains clanked, a forklift coughed black smoke, gulls screamed over mountains of scrap. Dawn made everything rust-colored and ugly. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Maya Cross kept her head down and her hands busy because attention in this yard wasn't a compliment. It was a problem. One Deke Malloy collected like rent. Deke stood over her, cigarette dangling from two fingers, thick neck catching the early light, mid-40s, built like a block of concrete, eyes always measuring. He looked past her shoulder into the narrow gap she'd crawled into. "You lost?" he asked. Maya forced herself to stand without shaking. "You told me West Row, Copper. Not behind the stacks." His eyes slid to her pockets. "You're jumpy today." "Just working." Deke stepped closer, close enough that Maya could smell smoke and engine grease on him. "Deke don't like surprises, Maya." He said his own name like it was law. Maya held his stare. "Then you won't get one." A second passed. Then Deke's mouth twitched. Not a smile. More like a warning that he could smile whenever he wanted, and it wouldn't mean anything good. "Main lanes," he said. "Stay where I can see you." "Yes, sir." He walked off slow, like he expected her to run. Maya waited until his boots faded into the yard noise. Then she moved back into the gap, dropping low again, because the surprise was still there, buried under twisted metal like someone tried to erase it from the world. Break. She pushed aside a sheet of corrugated steel and felt her throat tighten. A black tank, a chrome bar, a winged skull decal half sanded off, custom red stripe under grime, deep red with a thin white border. Not factory. She'd seen that stripe on her phone 2 nights ago, a post blasting through local feeds, missing Harley, stolen, reward, do not buy, do not part out. In the comments, people didn't talk like it was a normal theft. They talked like it was a declaration of war. Maya pulled out her phone, kept it low, and snapped 2 photos. One of the stripe, one of the tank edge where an engraving peeked through dirt. Then she listened. Above the stack, a security camera sat on a pole, its dome smeared with dust. Maya couldn't tell where it pointed, but she felt its presence like a finger on the back of her neck. She angled her body, snapped one more photo of the VIN plate without lifting the phone too high, then slid the device back into her pocket as if she'd never touched it. Forklifts, chains, a distant radio, no footsteps. She reached under the seat, found the latch, and popped it with a soft metallic cough. Taped to the underside was a folded, oil-stained piece of paper, a number handwritten in ink that bled into the fibers like somebody pressed too hard, and bolted to the frame inside was a small polished plate held by a custom fastener, star-shaped, too deliberate to be random. Maya didn't know bikes the way bikers did, but she knew signatures. This wasn't just property. It was identity. She leaned closer and found the stamp near the plate. Tiny wings around a circle, and one clean word that survived the dirt. Mercy. Her stomach turned. That word had been in the post, too. "Look for Mercy," someone wrote. "That's how you know it's his." His. The kind of his you didn't argue with. Maya's eyes darted toward the lane where Deke had disappeared. She pictured him finding this, calling whoever he owed, handing the bike over like a gift. She pictured the sheriff's cruiser rolling in to inspect while envelopes changed hands. She needed insurance, something small, something she could prove later. So she took the star-shaped fastener. She braced a flathead against it and turned, slow, careful, fighting the stiffness. The screw finally came free into her palm, warm from friction. She slipped it into her pocket like it was a bullet. Then she retaped the number, closed the seat, and covered the Harley again. Metal, rubber, shredded upholstery, until it vanished back into the junk. When she crawled out, her hands were black, and her pulse wouldn't slow. Break. The day dragged, every minute stretched tight. Maya stayed in the main lanes like Deke ordered, stripping wires and pulling parts while she watched shadows. Every beep from a forklift made her flinch. Every truck that rolled into the yard made her think, they're here. Near noon, Travis Boone leaned against a stack of tires like he belonged there more than the tires did. Deke's enforcer, late 20s, tattooed neck. A lazy grin that meant he enjoyed the moment right before things went bad. He watched Maya work. "Didn't know you liked bikes," he said. "I don't," Maya replied, not looking up. "Funny. Thought I saw you back west earlier." "I was checking copper." Travis pushed off the tires and strolled closer. "You find anything special?" The word special landed heavy. Maya kept her face empty. "Just scrap." Travis chuckled. "Everything's scrap until it isn't." He leaned in, voice dropping like a secret. "Deke hates surprises." Maya finally met his eyes. "Then tell him there isn't one." Travis held the stare, grin fading just a little, then stepped away like the conversation was finished. It wasn't. Maya clocked out at dusk with the others and drove home in a rattling sedan that sounded like it might die at every red light. The whole way, she checked her mirrors. Brake. Her trailer sat on the edge of town between a pawn shop and a boarded laundromat. The porch steps sagged. The light above the door flickered like it couldn't decide if it wanted to work. Inside, the air was stale and thin. In the back room, her mother slept with an oxygen tube in her nose, chest rising and falling in small, stubborn breaths. Maya stood there for a moment, watching, then walked to the kitchen table and pulled the star-shaped fastener from her pocket. So small, so sharp, so dangerous. She opened her phone and found the missing Harley post again. It was still there, still spreading, still full of warnings and rumors. "If you've seen it, call this number." The number matched the one she'd seen under the seat. She didn't even take her boots off. She went straight to the sink, washed the grease from her hands, then opened her gallery and stared at the photos until they stopped looking like pictures and started looking like a death sentence. She copied them into an email draft, addressed to herself, and saved it without sending, something she could launch with one tap if the yard tried to deny everything. Then she shut the phone off and set it face down like it might bite her. Maya stared until her eyes burned. She thought about Deke, about Travis, about the way the yard felt like it was watching her now. Then she hit call. It rang twice. On the third ring, a man answered with a voice low and controlled, like an engine idling in the dark. "Talk to me," Maya swallowed. "I saw the bike." Silence, not surprise. A pause like he was measuring her. "Where?" the man asked. "Belgrave, Salvage Yard, County Road 9. Another pause. Then a question so precise it made her skin go cold. "What's carved under the throttle clamp?" Maya's mouth went dry. "I didn't see the throttle, but I saw the mark." "Wings," and the word mercy. The line went very quiet. Then the man said, "Slower now. Do not move it. Do not tell anyone you called. What's your name?" Maya hesitated. Giving her name felt like stepping into a cage, but she'd already made the call. Maya Cross." "Are you alone?" he asked. "My mom's here." A breath on the other end. "Lock your doors tonight. If anyone comes, you don't open. If anyone asks about a bike, you never saw one. You understand?" Maya gripped the phone. "Who are you?" "A friend of the man who owns that Harley," he said. "And are you coming?" Maya asked, barely keeping her voice steady. "Yes," the man replied, and there was steel in it now. "We're coming." The call ended. Maya stared at the dark screen, then at the front door. Outside, an engine started, then another. Headlights slid past the pawn shop. A black truck with no markings rolled slow, like it was counting houses. It stopped in front of her trailer. The headlights stayed on. Maya stepped back, clutching the fastener so hard the edges bit into her palm. The porch light flickered once, twice. Then she heard it, soft, deliberate metal on metal. Someone testing her door handle. Maya didn't move. Not because she was brave, because her body had decided for her. She stood in the narrow space between the kitchen table and the hall, holding that star-shaped fastener like it could turn into a weapon if she squeezed hard enough. The door handle clicked again. Slow. Testing. Then a voice, muffled through the thin metal door. "Miss Cross?" Her stomach dropped. They knew her name. She kept her breathing shallow and quiet, like her mother used to tell her when storms came and the roof sounded like it wanted to lift off. "Miss Cross," the voice repeated, polite on the surface, wrong underneath. "We just want to talk." The porch light flickered once, then steadied. The headlights outside kept the living room window glowing pale. Maya could see her own reflection faintly in the glass, eyes too wide, hair stuck to her forehead. She didn't answer. A soft scrape, like a boot shifting on the porch boards. "Maya," the voice said, closer now, as if the man had leaned down so the words could slide through the crack. "Open up. We can do this easy." Her phone sat on the table, powered off. No 911, no flashlight, no neighbors close enough to hear anything but the occasional dog. Maya backed toward the hallway, one step at a time, trying not to let the floor creak. Her mother's room was at the back. If they came in, the first thing Maya had to do was get between them and that door. The handle went still. Silence. Then, from somewhere near the window, a light tap. One knuckle on glass, not hard, just enough to let her know they were patient. Maya swallowed bile and forced herself to think. The man on the phone had said, "Lock your doors." He hadn't said call, he hadn't said run, like he knew, like he understood the kind of people who came when you found something you weren't supposed to. Tap, tap. Then a low chuckle. "We hear you moving in there." Maya's throat tightened. If she stayed quiet, they could stand there all night. If she spoke, they'd get more than her name. They'd get confirmation. She moved into the hallway and slipped into her mom's room. The oxygen concentrator hummed softly. Her mother's eyes were closed, skin pale, hair thin against the pillow. Maya touched her shoulder, gentle. "Mom," she whispered. "Mom, wake up." Her mother blinked slowly, confused, then focused on Maya's face. "Maya, what?" "Shh." Maya pressed a finger to her lips. "Someone's outside." Her mother's eyes widened a fraction. "I didn't do anything," Maya whispered. "I need you quiet. Just stay in bed." A sharp knock cut through the trailer. Bang. The tone changed instantly. No more politeness. "Maya, open the door!" Her mother flinched. The oxygen tube shifted. Maya turned, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She stepped out of the room and pulled the door mostly shut behind her, leaving a sliver open so she could see her mom's face. Another knock. Harder. Bang. Bang. The thin door trembled in its frame. Maya looked around the hall, nothing but cheap furniture and a coat hook and a picture frame with an old family photo. She grabbed the phone from the table, still off. Her hands shook as she held the power button down. Come on, come on. The screen stayed black for a second too long. Outside, the handle rattled violently. Then the truck's engine revved once like a threat. The phone finally lit. Maya's fingers flew across the screen. No service? Of course. Belgrave was a dead zone on a good day. Tonight it felt like the world had been unplugged on purpose. "Maya," the voice barked. "Last chance." The porch boards creaked, footsteps moving. 2 sets now, not 1. Maya's mind snapped into motion. Back window, the bathroom vent, anything. She ran into the bathroom, shoved the tiny window up. It stuck. She yanked harder, the frame squealing. The window rose 3 inches, then stopped against an old warped track. Not enough. A sudden metallic scrape from the front, like something being slid under the door. Maya's blood turned cold. She sprinted back into the hall and saw it, a thin strip of metal, flat like a ruler, moving between the door and the frame. They were trying to pop the latch. She threw her shoulder against the door, pressing her weight into it. The strip bent, slid out, slid back in. A second strip joined it. They knew what they were doing. Maya braced her feet. Her hands, slick with sweat, clenched the star fastener. Her mother called weakly from the room. "Maya, please." Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. If she spoke, the men would hear her voice and know exactly where she stood. They'd picture her, and that made her easier to hurt. The latch shifted a millimeter. The strip twisted. Maya shoved harder, teeth bared. Then, suddenly, the pressure stopped. The metal strip slid away like nothing had happened. Silence. Maya held her breath until her lungs burned. She listened for footsteps. None. Then the truck outside rolled forward a few feet, tires crunching gravel. It didn't leave, it just repositioned. Maya's eyes flicked to the living room window. She couldn't see the porch from this angle. She crept closer and peeked around the cheap curtain. The black truck sat there, headlights still washing the front of her trailer. But now the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, silhouette against the beams, tall, broad, a hat pulled low. He didn't walk to the porch. He walked to the mailbox, opened it, and slid something inside. Then he looked at the window, not at her. At the window, like he knew exactly where she was standing anyway. He lifted his hand and tapped the brim of his hat, slow and mocking. Then he got back into the truck. The engine idled another 2 seconds, and the truck finally rolled away. Maya stayed frozen long after the taillights vanished. She waited until the night noise returned, distant highway hum, a dog barking somewhere, the faint squeal of a train line. Only then did she move. She opened the front door an inch, chain still on, and stared at the mailbox from the doorway. The yard smelled like old dust and exhaust. She stepped onto the porch, keeping her back to the door so nobody could grab her from behind, and crossed to the mailbox with small, careful steps. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Inside was a single envelope, no stamp, just her name written in neat block letters. Maya Cross. She didn't open it on the porch. She snatched it, turned, went back inside, locked the door again, and leaned her forehead against the metal like she could hold the whole world out by force. Her mother's voice drifted from the back, thin and scared. "Who was it?" Maya swallowed. "Nobody," she lied. Then she sat at the table and slid a finger under the envelope flap. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. No threats, no long message, just a printout, grainy and black and white, of a photo she recognized instantly. It was her, crouched behind the stacks in Belgrave Salvage, hand on chrome, a timestamp in the corner, and underneath, one line of text typed clean and cold: "We saw you." Maya's stomach clenched so hard she almost gagged, because the photo wasn't taken by a phone, it was taken by a yard camera, which meant Deke, Travis, someone at Belgrave already knew. Her phone buzzed suddenly on the table, making her flinch so hard the paper jumped. No signal before, but now the screen showed one bar. Unknown number, the same number she'd called earlier. Maya answered without thinking. "Hello?" The man's voice came through instantly, low and urgent now, stripped of calm. "They came to your house." Maya's throat closed. "Yes." "Did you open the door?" he asked. "No." A tight breath on the other end. "Good. Listen to me. You need to understand something, Maya. That bike? It's not the only thing buried in that yard." Maya stared at the photo of herself. "They have cameras." "I know," he said, "and they're going to use them. They're going to say you stole something. They're going to say you're the reason this happened." "What happened?" Maya whispered. The man hesitated half a second, just long enough to make the silence feel heavy. "The man who owns that Harley. He's not the kind of man you can hand a loss to and walk away from. But someone tried. And they didn't just take a bike." Maya's skin prickled. "What did they take?" "They took a piece of him," the man said, "and they used that Harley as bait." Maya's fingers tightened around the star fastener in her pocket. "Why me?" "Because you saw it," he replied, "and because you called. That means you're either a witness or leverage." Maya swallowed. "You said you're coming." "We are," he said, "but not in time to stop what they're about to do to you tomorrow." Maya's mouth went dry. "What are they about to do?" "They're going to bring the sheriff into it," he said. "They're going to put you in cuffs in front of a crowd and make it look clean, and then they're going to make the bike disappear for real." Maya's mind raced. "How do I stop it?" "First," he said, "you go to work like normal. You don't run. You don't act scared. You don't give them a reason to move early." Maya almost laughed at how impossible that sounded. "And then?" "And then you do exactly what I tell you," he said. "Because if you don't, you and your mother are going to get hurt." Maya's eyes flicked to the back hallway where her mom lay breathing through a machine, rage and fear twisted together in her chest. "Okay," she said, voice shaking. "Tell me." On the line, the man's voice lowered even more, the words dropping like a plan being loaded into a gun. "Tomorrow," he said, "you're going back to that Harley, and you're going to pull something out of it for us." Maya stared at the photo again. at her own crouched shape, exposed and helpless. "What?" she whispered. The man answered, flat and deadly certain. "The thing they don't know is inside." Maya didn't sleep. She lay on the couch with her jacket on, shoes still laced, phone in her hand like it might save her if she stared at it hard enough. Every time a car passed on the highway, she sat up. Every time the porch boards popped with temperature, her lungs locked. When dawn finally leaked through the blinds, it wasn't relief. It was a deadline. She checked on her mom first, oxygen humming, eyes half open. "You're up early," her mother rasped. Maya forced a normal voice. "Just work." Her mother watched her a long moment, like she could see the weight Maya was carrying and couldn't lift it off. "You look like your father when he knew something was wrong and pretended it wasn't." Maya swallowed. "I'll be back by 6. Her mother's hand found Maya's wrist, weak but firm. "Don't make brave choices for me." Maya's throat tightened. "I'm not." She left before she could say anything else. "Break." Belgrave Salvage was already loud when she pulled in. Deke liked the yard moving early. Machines running, men busy, noise covering conversations. He liked it because noise could swallow mistakes. Maya parked in the employee strip and sat for 3 seconds with the engine off, gripping the wheel until her knuckles went pale. Then she got out and walked like she belonged there. She clocked in. She nodded at Kenny from shredding. She didn't look at the security pole. She didn't look at West Row. She went straight to the main lanes, picked up a bucket of tools, and started pulling copper like she'd been ordered. Normal. Inside, nothing was normal. Every few minutes she felt eyes, not random coworker eyes, the kind that catalog you, the kind that remember. When she bent to cut wiring, she caught a glimpse of Travis Boone across the yard, leaning near the office container with a coffee cup. He wasn't working. He was watching. When Maya looked away, she felt his gaze stay on her like heat. Break. Deke showed up at 9 with a clipboard he didn't need and a grin he didn't mean. "Maya," he called, loud enough for nearby guys to hear. "Come here." She wiped her hands on her jeans and walked over, keeping her face blank. Deke tapped the clipboard as if he was doing real management. "We're doing a restack today, West Row. Need someone small who can get between the piles. You." Maya's stomach dropped, but her face didn't. "You told me main lanes." "Changed my mind," Deke said, smile widening. "Unless you got a problem with that." Travis sipped his coffee, eyes amused. Maya forced a breath. "No problem." "Good girl." Deke turned like it was settled, then paused and leaned in close, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You get nervous easy. That's not good in a place with cameras." The words were soft. The threat wasn't. Maya held his stare. "I'll do the job." Deke's eyes flicked down to her pockets again like he remembered yesterday, like he wondered what she'd taken. Then he stepped back, all friendliness again. "Let's move," he called. Break. West Row looked different in daylight, less like a secret hiding spot, more like a battlefield of ruined machines. Stacks of cars, bent frames, tires like walls, pits of scrap that swallowed sunlight. As Maya walked deeper, the noise of the yard faded behind the piles. It felt like stepping into a pocket where the rules changed. 2 men were already there with shovels and a small loader. Deke's guys, not the usual crew. They nodded once, not friendly. Travis followed Maya in, slow, hands in his pockets. "Funny thing," he said. "You ever notice how people disappear in places like this?" Maya didn't answer. Travis chuckled. "Relax, it's just scrap." Maya stopped beside the exact pile where the Harley was buried. The same twisted sheet metal, the same crushed upholstery, the same corner of black tank she'd seen yesterday, now covered tighter. Deke clapped his hands. "All right, we're clearing this section for the crusher pickup. Move the top layer. Anything valuable comes to me first." Maya's pulse thudded in her ears. The man on the phone had said, "Go back to that Harley, pull something out." But how, with Deke and Travis right here? She bent, grabbed a length of metal, and started shifting pieces like she was just doing her job. Slow, steady. Deke watched her hands. Travis watched her face. Maya kept her eyes down and moved scrap, inch by inch, feeling for the spot under the seat where the paper was taped, feeling for the welded frame section where a hidden compartment might be. "Careful," Travis said behind her. "Wouldn't want you cutting yourself." Maya forced a small laugh. "I'm fine." Travis crouched beside her suddenly, too close, his shoulder almost touching hers. "You sure?" Maya's breath snagged. She shifted away, grabbing a panel and tossing it aside. Underneath, the black tank edge flashed in sunlight for half a second. Travis's eyes snapped to it, so fast Maya almost missed it, but she felt his body go still. Then he stood up slowly. Maya's throat went dry. He saw it. He turned and called out, casual. "Hey, Deke." Deke looked over. "Yeah?" Travis nodded toward the pile. "Think we found something." Deke walked over, boots crunching, face calm. Too calm. Maya kept moving scrap like she hadn't heard. Deke stepped into the gap and stared down at the half-hidden Harley. A long moment passed where he didn't speak. Then he looked at Maya like she was a stain. "You didn't tell me," he said softly. Maya's hands kept working. "Tell you what?" Deke smiled, not with his eyes. "Don't play dumb." He leaned down and brushed away dirt from the tank with his palm. The red stripe appeared, unmistakable now. Travis whistled low. "Well, damn." Deke's face stayed composed, but something hard moved behind his eyes. "How long's this been here?" Maya's mind raced. Lie clean. "No idea, I just got assigned here." Deke stood, eyes drilling into her. "You were back here yesterday." Maya shrugged, forcing casual. "Copper run." Deke looked at Travis. Travis shrugged back, same casual. "She was back here, yeah. Said she was checking copper." Deke's gaze returned to Maya. "And you didn't notice a whole motorcycle?" Maya bent and yanked a panel like she didn't care. "It's a salvage yard. Everything's buried." Deke stared a moment longer, then he nodded slowly, as if accepting it. But Maya saw the calculation. Deke turned and called toward the front of the row. "Loader, bring it in!" One of his men started the small loader. The machine growled and rolled closer, forks scraping. Maya's heartbeat climbed. If they lifted the pile, the Harley would come up. If the Harley came up, whatever was hidden inside would be moved, and she'd lose her chance. The man on the phone had said they weren't coming in time to stop what was about to happen to her today. This was it. Maya glanced at the security camera pole above the stacks. Its dark dome stared down, silent. Then she made the only choice she had. She dropped a panel with a loud clang and recoiled, pretending it clipped her hand. "Ah," Travis looked instantly. "You good?" Maya squeezed her fingers, grimacing. "Yeah, just hold on." She stepped back, shaking her hand like she was checking for blood. But her other hand slid into her pocket, found the star fastener she'd taken yesterday, and palmed it. Deke frowned, impatient. "Don't stop. Move." "I'm moving," Maya said. She bent again, lower this time, and wedged her body between the pile and the adjacent stack, so Deke and Travis couldn't see her hands clearly. From this angle, she could reach under the seat. Her fingers found the latch. She popped it open just a crack, shielded by her body in the shadows. Inside, she felt around. Frame metal, wiring, taped paper. Then her fingertips touched something she hadn't felt yesterday. A small metal cylinder, cold and smooth, taped deeper into the cavity. Not paper, not a bolt, something heavier. Her breath caught. The thing they don't know is inside. Maya's fingers tightened around it, testing. It was wedged in tight, wrapped with black tape and grease-stained cloth, like someone tried to hide it fast. She tugged once. It didn't budge. Deke's voice cut in, sharp. "Maya!" Her whole body tensed. "Yeah?" He stepped closer. She could feel it, could smell smoke again. "Let me see your hand." Maya's mind flashed. If she showed him, he'd step around her. He'd see the seat cracked open. He'd see her fingers inside. She swallowed, forced annoyance. "It's fine, just a pinch." "Let me see," Deke repeated, and now the friendliness was gone. Travis shifted to her left, blocking her path out of the gap without even trying. Maya's pulse thundered. Her fingers tightened on the cylinder. She needed it out now. She yanked harder. The tape resisted. A sound behind her, metal shifting as the loader fork slid under the pile, time collapsing. Maya twisted the star fastener in her palm and jammed it like a crude pry tool under the tape edge. She worked fast, desperate, keeping her body hunched to hide the movement. The tape tore with a soft rip. The cylinder came free into her hand. It was about the length of her palm, capped on both ends, sealed. On the side, etched faintly, a symbol. Wings around a circle. Mercy. Maya's breath froze in her throat. Deke grabbed her wrist, hard. "Show me." he said, voice low. Maya forced her face into a grimace and held up her empty hand, the one she'd pretended to hurt, fingers red from squeezing too hard. See? Nothing. Deke's grip tightened until it hurt. His eyes flicked down, scanning her, reading her posture. Travis leaned in, eyes narrow. What you hiding, Maya? Maya swallowed. Nothing. The cylinder was in her other hand, down by her thigh, hidden behind her leg. It felt like a live wire. Deke released her wrist slowly, but his eyes stayed locked on her face. All right, he said. Step out. Maya stepped out of the gap, keeping her right side turned away. Deke pointed at the loader operator. Lift it. The forks rose, scraps sliding, groaning. The Harley's front wheel emerged first, then the tank, then the full body, mud-streaked, beaten, but unmistakable. Travis let out a low laugh. Holy! Deke stared at it like a man looking at money and trouble at the same time. Then he turned toward Maya again, and his voice dropped so low it barely carried over the machine noise. You called someone, he said. Maya's stomach fell. What? Deke stepped closer until his chest almost touched hers. People don't bury a bike like this unless they're scared of who it belongs to. And now I find it with you in my row, acting innocent. He leaned in, mouth near her ear. If you brought heat here, I'll bury you with it? Maya's vision narrowed. She felt the cylinder heavy in her hand, hidden, proof of something bigger. Travis's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked up, suddenly alert. Deke. Deke didn't take his eyes off Maya. What? Travis nodded toward the yard entrance, far beyond the stacks, where the sound began, faint at first, then building. A low rumble, distant but growing fast. Engines, not one truck, not two, many. The rumble rolled through the piles like thunder crawling closer. Deke's expression shifted for the first time, tightening, not sure. Maya heard it too, and her blood went cold with a new kind of fear. Because the man on the phone had said, "We're coming." And that sound didn't feel like help. It felt like the world arriving to collect its debt. The rumble got louder by the second. It didn't sound like one convoy. It sounded like a tide, engines stacked in layers, rolling over each other until the scrap piles seemed to vibrate. Even the forklift operator eased off the throttle and looked toward the front of the yard like he'd just remembered he had a spine. Deke's jaw worked once. His eyes flicked to Travis. Travis was already backing up, scanning the lanes. That's not ours. No, Deke said, voice tight. That's not ours. Maya stood with her right hand behind her thigh, the sealed cylinder pressed against her palm, sweat slicking the metal. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But Deke's men were between her and the only open lane out, and the stacks around them made the west row a funnel. The Harley hung in the air on the loader forks like a trophy that didn't belong to anyone here. Then Deke snapped back into control, at least he tried to. Cover it, he barked. Now, throw a tarp on it. Get it off the forks. Move. Two men scrambled, dragging a stained blue tarp from a pile. The loader operator lowered the forks slightly, and the men reached for the bike. Maya's eyes flicked up again to the security camera pole. It wasn't just watching, it was recording. Deke didn't care about truth, he cared about what he could edit into a story. Travis stepped close to Maya, blocking her with his body. You didn't tell anyone, right? Maya forced herself to breathe. No. Travis smiled like he'd heard that lie before. Good. Because whatever's coming through that gate, Deke's gonna need a clean reason to blame somebody. Maya's throat tightened. Why me? Travis leaned in, voice low. Because you're easy. The engine surged, closer now, then slowed, as if the riders were hitting the brakes together. A horn blared, long, deep. Deke's radio crackled from his pocket. One of the guys at the front yelled something that didn't carry back to West Row, but the panic in his tone did. Deke raised his chin. Everybody to the front. Travis, with me. Travis didn't move, not right away. His eyes stayed on Maya's pockets and the way she kept her right side guarded. He noticed. Maya saw it in the narrowing of his gaze, the slight tilt of his head like he was putting pieces together. What did you take? He murmured. Maya's heart slammed. Nothing. Travis's hand shot out and grabbed her jacket pocket, patting. Then you won't mind me checking. Maya twisted away hard, instinctive. Travis's fingers slipped off fabric, but it was enough movement that Deke turned his head. Maya, Deke said again, dangerous calm. Come with us. Maya didn't move. Deke took one step toward her. Then the first motorcycles entered the salvage yard. Brake. Belgrave Salvage had a wide gate designed for dump trucks. It had never been designed for a wall of bikes, black and chrome, rolling in like a funeral procession that forgot to mourn. The sound hit West Row a heartbeat later, amplified by scrap metal. Maya couldn't see the entrance from where they stood, but she could hear the yard changing, men calling out, machines stopping, someone shouting for the office. Then came the unmistakable pattern of many motorcycles moving slow and controlled, not racing, not random, organized. Deke's face tightened as if a hand was squeezing his throat. Travis's bravado drained a shade. Jesus, Travis muttered. The rumble grew, then settled into a heavy idle that filled the whole property like a threat you could breathe in. Deke's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then shoved it back into his pocket without answering. No, he said under his breath, like the word could stop what was coming. Maya looked at the Harley again, suspended half-covered by the tarp. The mercy stripe was still visible at the edge, like a confession someone forgot to erase. She felt the cylinder in her hand. Whatever was inside it was now the only thing she had that wasn't controlled by Deke. A sharp whistle cut across the yard, Deke's signal. His men started moving, quick and nervous. Deke pointed. Office container, now. Travis grabbed Maya's elbow, hard. You too. Maya jerked free, but Travis's grip tightened, fingers digging into her skin. Don't, he warned low. Don't do stupid right now. Maya's mind raced. If he dragged her into the office container, she'd be trapped with Deke, cameras, and whatever paperwork they used to bury people. She wouldn't get a chance to hand the cylinder off. She wouldn't even get a chance to call. She did the only thing she could think of. She stumbled. Not a dramatic fall, just enough to make Travis adjust his hold. When he shifted, Maya used her left hand to shove the cylinder deeper into the waistband of her jeans behind her hip, under her shirt, where his quick pat-down wouldn't find it. Travis yanked her upright, irritated. Quit it, Maya forced a breath. You're hurting me. That's the idea, Travis muttered, and dragged her forward. Brake. As they moved toward the main lanes, the noise thickened. Workers had stopped pretending to work. Everyone was facing the entrance or pretending not to. Then, Maya saw them. The first line of bikers rolled in two abreast, black vests, patches, helmets. Their rides were clean, heavy, expensive. Nothing like the junk in this yard. Behind them came more and more, rows, 100 at least. They moved like a unit, not a crowd. Every head turned the same way. Every bike stopped at the same time, engines idling like animals ready to bite. They didn't fan out like chaos. They formed a semicircle, a containment. Maya's stomach flipped. In front of them stood three men without helmets. One in the center was older, broad in the shoulders, gray at his temples, beard trimmed close. His eyes didn't wander. They pinned the yard like he was reading it, measuring it, deciding what could be taken apart. The man on the phone had sounded like that, controlled, certain. Deke walked forward with his hands visible, his yard smile on, the one he used when inspectors came around. Gentlemen, can I help you? The older biker didn't answer immediately. He looked past Deke, scanning. His gaze landed on the yard workers, on the machinery, on the distant stacks. Then, when he spoke, his voice was calm enough to be terrifying. We're here for what was taken. Deke chuckled like this was a misunderstanding. Taken? This is a salvage yard. People dump. The biker cut him off with a small lift of his hand. Not aggressive, final. A Harley, he said. Black, custom stripe. Word carved into it. Deke spread his hands. I don't know anything about... The biker's eyes shifted slightly to Travis, then to Maya. And Maya knew with a sick certainty that this man didn't need Deke to confess. He already had pieces. He just wanted to see who lied first. Travis squeezed Maya's elbow again, warning. Deke's smile stayed glued on. You got the wrong place. The older biker nodded once like he'd expected that. Then he said very softly, Open your gates. Deke's smile tightened. Excuse me? Open your gates, the biker repeated, still soft. And you let my men look. Or we do it without you. Behind him, the line of bikes didn't move, but the air shifted, like a crowd holding its breath. Deke's eyes darted toward the sheriff's office line, like he was waiting for backup. Maya followed his glance and saw something that made her stomach drop again. A county cruiser was already pulling in from the road. Lights off. Quiet. like it had been waiting just out of sight. Deke exhaled through his nose, relieved for the first time. Travis leaned closer to Maya and murmured, "See? Told you. Clean reason." Maya's mouth went dry. "What reason?" Travis's eyes stayed on the biker line. "You." The cruiser rolled to a stop beside Deke. The sheriff got out slowly. Sheriff Halverson, belly pushing against his uniform, face set in that bored, superior mask he wore at town meetings. He didn't look surprised to see 100 bikers. He looked annoyed. "All right," Halverson said loud enough for everyone to hear. "What's going on here?" Deke stepped toward him immediately. "Sheriff, thank God. These guys are trespassing, demanding property. I told them." The older biker finally smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Sheriff Halverson." Halverson narrowed his eyes. "Do I know you?" "You know what you did," the biker replied. That landed. For the first time, Halverson's mask slipped a fraction. Deke jumped in, too eager. "Sheriff, we've got an employee who might be involved. She's been acting strange. Back where she shouldn't be. I think she's the one who brought them." Maya's blood turned to ice. Halverson's eyes slid to Maya like she was already guilty. "Is that so?" Travis tightened his grip on her arm and pushed her forward a step. Maya stumbled, caught herself, and looked out at the line of bikes. The older biker's eyes locked on hers, and Maya realized something worse than the sheriff. These bikers weren't here blind. They were here with purpose, and she was standing in the middle of two forces that didn't forgive. Halverson took one step toward her. "Name?" Maya swallowed. "Maya Cross." Halverson nodded like he'd heard it already. "Maya Cross. You're under investigation for theft of property from this salvage yard. Put your hands where I can see them." Maya's heart slammed. The cylinder dug into her waistband like a secret, screaming to be found. She lifted her hands slowly. The older biker's gaze stayed on her, steady. Then, over the idle of 100 engines, he spoke, just loud enough for her to hear. "Don't let him touch you." Halverson reached for his cuffs, and Travis's hand slid toward Maya's waistband, like he'd decided to check for himself. Travis's hand slid toward Maya's waistband like he'd already decided the outcome. Maya twisted her hips away on instinct, but the movement was small, too small to stop him if he wanted to commit. Sheriff Halverson's cuffs dangled from his fingers, metal catching morning light like a threat dressed up as procedure. "Hands up," Halverson repeated, louder now, performing for the yard workers who had drifted into a loose semicircle behind him. "Stay calm, and this goes easy." Easy meant quiet. Easy meant clean paperwork. Easy meant her mom alone in a trailer while Maya disappeared into a system that didn't care if she ever came back. Maya kept her hands raised, but her eyes flicked to the older biker. He hadn't moved. He hadn't raised his voice. He was still as stone, watching every finger, every step. "Don't let him touch you," he had said. Halverson took another step. "You're being detained." The older biker finally moved. Not aggressively, not fast. He just stepped forward into the line between Halverson and Maya, like the space had always belonged to him. Halverson's brows shot up. "Back up." The biker's voice stayed level. "You can talk to her from where you stand." Halverson squared his shoulders, trying to look bigger. "This is my county. She works here. Deke says she stole property." "Deke says a lot," the biker replied. Deke's face tightened. "Sheriff, they're intimidating." The biker didn't even look at Deke. His eyes stayed on Halverson. "You're going to put cuffs on a girl because a salvage yard owner asked you to. That's your plan?" Halverson's jaw clenched. "My plan is to keep order." The biker nodded once, almost sympathetic. Then he said something that changed the temperature of the whole yard. "Order," he repeated, "like the order you kept when a Harley went missing and you told your people to look the other way." The yard went quiet around the edges. Even the gulls seemed to pause. Halverson's face twitched, the first real crack in him. "Watch your mouth." The biker's expression didn't shift. "Or what? You'll arrest me for saying your name out loud?" Behind him, the line of motorcycles idled like a wall breathing. No revving, no shouting, just presence. Maya felt her knees trying to loosen. She forced them locked. If she looked weak, Travis would pounce. Travis did pounce. His hand darted in, fast, going for her waistband. Maya jerked back, but he caught fabric and yanked hard. The cylinder thumped against her skin. Travis's fingers found the shape instantly. His eyes flashed with triumph. Got something, he said. Maya's stomach dropped through the floor. Before Travis could pull it free, the older biker's arm snapped out. Not a punch, not a wild move. A clean grip on Travis's wrist. The biker twisted once, controlled. Travis made a sound that wasn't tough anymore. The biker held Travis's wrist at an angle that made the tendons scream. You touch her again, he said quietly, and I'll remove your hand. Halverson reached for his radio. All right, that's enough. The older biker didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He just looked at the sheriff like the sheriff was the one who'd made a bad decision. I wouldn't, he said. That was all. Halverson hesitated. And in that hesitation, Maya understood something. Halverson had expected noise, chaos, a biker tantrum. Something he could film and justify. What he got was discipline. And it scared him more. Deke tried to recover. Sheriff, they're assaulting my employee. The older biker finally glanced at Deke, a slow look, top to bottom, like he was memorizing him for later. Then he released Travis's wrist, not because Travis deserved mercy, but because the biker had made his point. Travis staggered back, shaking his hand, eyes burning with humiliation. The older biker turned back to Maya. Name, he asked. Maya, she said, throat tight. Maya Cross. He nodded once. Maya, did you find the Harley? Maya's heart hammered. 100 eyes were on her now. Workers, Deke's men, the sheriff, the bikers. If she answered wrong, she'd be crushed in the middle. She swallowed. Yes. Deke exploded. There, you hear that? She admits it. Halverson seized the moment. Then she's coming with me, hands behind your back. The older biker didn't even look at Halverson when he spoke next. She's not going anywhere with you. Halverson's face flushed. You don't decide that. The biker's eyes finally cut to him, cold. Then decide this. You can either let her speak here, in front of everyone, with cameras rolling, or you can grab her and create the exact footage your boss paid you for. Halverson froze. My boss? The biker's voice stayed calm, but the words were knives. Don't pretend you don't know. We both know you've been on Deke's payroll since the impound auction started coming up short. A murmur rippled through the workers, not loud, just enough. Deke's face went stiff. This is nonsense. The biker pointed, not at Deke, but at the yard cameras. Those are yours, Deke. They'll show exactly what happened today. Deke's eyes flicked upward involuntarily. Maya's mind clicked. Deke loved cameras until the cameras worked for someone else. Halverson lowered his cuffs slightly, trying to regain control. I'm giving a lawful order. Stand down. The older biker turned his head toward the semicircle of bikers, just a glance, like a signal. And 101 bikes did something almost silent. They stopped idling in place and shifted forward an inch, together, like a wave testing a seawall. No one shouted, but everyone understood what it meant. Halverson swallowed. He glanced at Deke, searching for reassurance. Deke's reassurance came as a hiss through clenched teeth. Sheriff, do your job. Halverson's pride flared. He took a step forward again, trying to force it, and that's when the older biker spoke a name that landed like a hammer. Cutter. One of the bikers on the left side of the formation, big man, shaved head, eyes like burnt glass, reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a laminated photo. He held it up for the sheriff to see. It was a Harley, black tank, red stripe, the same mercy mark. Under it, a picture of a man, young, laughing, arm around the bike like it was family. Halverson's eyes flicked to the man's face. He recognized him. Maya saw it. Cutter stepped forward and spoke for the first time, voice low and ragged. That's my brother. That bike was his. The yard got quieter. The older biker looked at Maya again. Maya, did you pull anything off that Harley? Maya's throat tightened. She felt the cylinder still pressed into her waistband, still the most dangerous thing she'd ever held. She thought about her mom, the oxygen machine, the trailer, the black truck last night. Then she nodded once. Yes. Deke's eyes flashed. What did you take? Maya kept her gaze on the older biker. Something that was hidden, Halverson snapped. That's evidence. Hand it over. The older biker's voice stayed steady. Not to him. Maya's hands shook as she reached behind her hip, fingers sliding under her shirt. She pulled the cylinder free slowly. For a heartbeat, it looked harmless. just metal and tape. Then the morning light hit the etched wings on the side. Mercy. Cutter's face changed. Something inside him broke and hardened at the same time. Deke's breath caught, his eyes locked on the cylinder like it was a live grenade. Travis, still rubbing his wrist, took one step forward, greedy and furious. "Give it here," Travis snarled. The older biker stepped into his path without even turning his head fully. "No." Maya held the cylinder out, not toward the sheriff, not toward Deke, toward the older biker. He took it with both hands like it mattered, like it was fragile and sacred and dangerous all at once. He didn't open it. He just looked at it, then looked at Deke. "You thought you buried the Harley," he said softly, "but you left the heart in it." Deke forced a laugh that sounded like it hurt. "I don't know what that is." The older biker nodded as if he believed him. Then he raised his voice for the first time, just enough to carry. "This yard is a trap," he said, "and someone's planning to turn this into a headline." Halverson snapped. "What are you talking about?" The older biker's eyes moved across the scrap stacks, the cranes, the crushed cars positioned like walls. Then he looked back at Maya. "Maya," he said, "how many exits does this place have?" Maya swallowed and answered automatically. "One main gate, one service gate on the south fence, usually chained." Deke's face tightened. The biker nodded once. "Chained," he repeated. He turned to Cutter. "Get eyes on the south fence." Cutter nodded and signaled two men, who peeled off instantly, riding slow but purposeful along the yard's perimeter. Halverson lifted his radio again. "I'm calling backup." The older biker didn't stop him. He just said quieter now, "Do it." Halverson hesitated, then spoke into the radio. "Unit," a sharp crack cut the air, not a gunshot. A loud metallic snap from somewhere behind the stacks. Every head turned. Then another sound. Heavy machinery starting up, not in the main lanes, but deeper inside the yard. A crane. Deke's eyes darted toward West Row. His face went pale. The older biker watched him closely. "What did you just start, Deke?" Deke's mouth opened, then closed. Because whatever was starting back there wasn't meant for moving scrap. It was meant for closing the yard. Travis backed away slowly, eyes scanning, suddenly nervous. Maya felt the hairs rise on her arms, because the noise from the crane wasn't random. It was timed. And for the first time, Maya understood what the man on the phone meant. They didn't bring 101 bikers here to recover a bike. They brought them here to be boxed in. The crane arm rose above the stacks like a giant waking up. And then, from the south fence line, Cutter's voice came through, loud and sharp over the engines. "Boss, south gate's chained and there's a fuel truck parked against it." The older biker's face didn't change, but his eyes did. "All right," he said, calm as death. "Now we know what kind of day this is." He turned to Maya. "Stay close to me." Maya's throat went dry. "What's happening?" The older biker answered without looking away from Deke. "An ambush," he said, and then the first real gunshot cracked the air, sharp, unmistakable, somewhere high above the scrap piles. The gunshot didn't echo the way it should have. It cracked and vanished into the scrap like the yard swallowed it, metal and rubber eating sound, so for a fraction of a second, Maya's brain tried to pretend it hadn't happened. Then, a worker near the shredder line yelped and dropped, clutching his shoulder, and the whole place snapped into reality at once. People scattered. Someone screamed. A forklift reversed too fast and clipped a stack of rims, sending them clanging like bells. Sheriff Halverson flinched, then immediately squared up, eyes darting toward the bikers like he expected them to start firing back. But the Hells Angels line didn't break. They moved like they'd been waiting for this exact moment. The older biker, Maya's anchor in the storm, grabbed her by the back of her jacket and pulled her down behind a low wall of stacked tires. "Down," he said, calm, precise. Maya hit the dirt hard, gravel biting her palms. The smell of hot oil and rust filled her nose. Her heart hammered so loud she couldn't hear anything else for a beat. Then more cracks popped. 2, 3, higher up, not aimed at the bikers, a little off, like someone wanted fear, not hits. Halverson barked into his radio. Shots fired at Belgrave Salvage, send units." Deke was yelling too, but it was different, panic buried under forced control. "Everybody inside, move, move!" Travis looked like he wanted to crawl out of his skin. He wasn't in charge anymore, and he knew it. The older biker lifted his head a fraction, eyes scanning the stacks for angles. Then he turned slightly and spoke to a man beside him without raising his voice. "Patch, kill the cameras." A biker with a compact backpack nodded and moved, fast but not frantic, staying low as he crossed open gravel toward the nearest camera pole. Halverson saw the movement and shouted, "Hey, stop!" He raised his gun, not at the shooter, but toward Patch. The older biker's gaze snapped to him. "Put that away." Halverson hesitated, caught between pride and survival. "This is an active shooter." "And you're aiming at the wrong person," the older biker said. Another shot cracked, closer this time. Dirt kicked up near Halverson's boot. The sheriff jumped back, cursed, then finally did what he should have done first. He ducked behind his cruiser door. Maya's stomach rolled. The sheriff was supposed to be protection. He was just another player, and he wasn't even good at it. The older biker reached into his vest and pulled out a phone, one of those tough old-school ones that looked like it had been dropped 100 times and survived. He hit a button, listened for half a second, then spoke. "Now," he said. They started it. Maya couldn't tell who he was talking to, but the words felt like a switch flipping. Cutter's voice carried from the south fence line again, strained but controlled. "Fuel truck's got the gate pinned, chains welded. Someone's inside the cab." Maya's mouth went dry. Someone inside the cab. A person, not a barricade, a living trigger. The older biker cursed under his breath. Not loud, just enough for Maya to hear the edge slip. He glanced down at her. "You see that office container?" he asked. Maya nodded, peeking around the tires. The container sat near the main lanes, white metal walls, small windows, Deke's little kingdom. "That's where they'll try to put you," he said. Maya's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because you're their receipt," he replied. "If they can stick your fingerprints on something, they can sell a story." More shots. Then a heavier sound, like a big rifle, slower and deeper. A chunk of scrap above them sparked as a round struck it. The older biker's hand pressed Maya's shoulder down. "Don't lift your head." "Who's shooting?" Maya whispered. He didn't answer right away. He listened. Then he said, "Not amateurs." That was somehow worse. Patch reached the camera pole and popped open a small panel at its base. He pulled a tool, clipped something, and the camera dome above them went dead, its little red light blinking out. Deke noticed instantly. "Hey!" Deke shouted. "You can't—" He didn't finish. A shot snapped past him and punched into the office container wall, leaving a fist-sized dent. Deke stumbled backward, face pale. So much for being in control. Halverson shouted from behind his cruiser, "Everybody get down! This is law enforcement!" No one listened. Workers were crawling behind scrap, trying to hide. Deke's men were moving toward the cranes and forklifts, not away. Maya saw two of them sprint to a forklift, start it, and angle it across a lane like a barrier. They were building a cage. The older biker watched that, eyes cold. "They're closing the lanes." He turned to the biker beside him. "Rook, pull our front line back 10 yards. Make space." Rook nodded, raised a hand, and the first row of bikes rolled backward in perfect sync, giving themselves room, enough to maneuver, enough to not be packed in like fish. Halverson saw them move and shouted, "That's it! You're all under arrest!" A shot rang and Halverson ducked, his words dying in his throat. Maya's breath came shallow. The cylinder, the one she'd pulled from the Harley, was no longer in her hands. The older biker had it. Maya hadn't even seen where he put it, and that fact scared her more than it should have. If it was that important, then she was already in deeper than she could understand. The older biker touched his vest, feeling for something, then leaned close to Maya. "What's the fastest way from here to the south fence?" Maya blinked, mind scrambling. "There's a cut path behind the compactors. It's narrow. Forklifts don't go there." "Show me," he said. Maya hesitated. "They're shooting." He looked at her with a quiet steadiness that made her hold still. "They're shooting to steer us. I'm not letting them steer you into a box." Another shot cracked overhead. The older biker grabbed Maya's sleeve and moved, low, quick, pulling her along the shadowed side of a scrap stack. Two bikers flowed behind them like bodyguards, rifles not raised, eyes scanning. They didn't look like they wanted a fight. They looked like they wanted control. Maya's boots slipped in oil slicks as she hurried. Her lungs burned. She could hear the chaos behind them, Deke yelling, Halverson radioing, bikes revving in short bursts, men cursing. As they rounded a stack of crushed sedans, Maya saw Travis ahead. He was moving along the same route, crouched and fast, heading not toward cover, but toward Deke's office container. He had something in his hand. A small black device with an antenna, a radio? No, too small, too deliberate. Travis glanced back, spotted them, and his expression twisted. He bolted. The older biker swore. "He's running a trigger." Maya's stomach dropped. "Trigger for what?" The answer came before he could speak. A forklift, abandoned, suddenly lurched to life near the main lanes and drove forward. No driver. Its throttle jammed. It rammed a stack of old refrigerators, sending them crashing down into the lane. Metal exploded, blocking the path between the bikers and the gate. A trap, remote-controlled or rigged. Then the crane arm above West Row swung, slow at first, then faster, dropping a heavy chain bundle like a pendulum across another lane. Clang. The chain smashed into the ground, throwing sparks, making a barrier of tangled steel no bike could ride through. Maya's ears rang. "They're closing everything." The older biker's voice stayed tight. "They're forcing us into the center." He grabbed Maya harder and pulled her toward the compactors. The narrow cut path she'd mentioned was ahead, between two towering walls of scrap. But as they reached it, a figure stepped out from behind a stack. Deke Malloy. No clipboard now, no smile. He held a pistol in both hands, arms stiff, eyes wild with calculation and fear. Behind him, two of his men emerged, also armed, using the scrap walls as cover. "Maya," Deke called, breathy, like he was talking to a dog he'd almost trained. "Come here." Maya froze. The older biker didn't. He stepped in front of her, putting his body between Maya and the gun. Deke's pistol aimed at the biker's chest, trembling slightly. "You people need to leave, now, before somebody gets hurt." The older biker's voice was almost gentle. "Somebody already got hurt." Deke swallowed. "That wasn't me." The older biker tilted his head. "Then why are you holding a gun?" Deke's eyes flicked to Maya. "Because she's stealing from me. Because she's bringing criminals onto my property." Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to shout that she hadn't stolen anything, that she'd tried to do the right thing, that Deke's cameras were the reason she'd almost died last night. But the words stuck. Wrong words got people killed. The older biker spoke for her. "You tried to put her in cuffs. You sent a truck to her house." Deke's face twitched. "I don't know what you're talking about." The older biker's eyes stayed on him. "I do." Deke's voice rose, trying to regain authority. "This is my yard, my workers. You don't come in here and—" A loud crack split the air, not from above this time, from behind Deke. One of Deke's men jerked and dropped, clutching his thigh, screaming. Blood sprayed on rusted metal. Deke whirled around, shocked. The shot had come from a different angle, not the high shooter. Someone closer, someone moving. A biker in a dark hoodie stepped out from the shadowed path behind the compactors, weapon low, not aimed at Deke, just enough to stop the immediate threat. The older biker didn't flinch. He'd expected it. Deke's eyes went wide. "What the—" The hooded biker barked. "Drop it!" Deke's pistol swung back toward the older biker on reflex. Maya's body moved before her mind did. She grabbed the older biker's vest and yanked him sideways just as Deke fired. The round punched into the scrap wall behind them with a violent ping. The older biker's hand clamped Maya's shoulder, steadying her. "Good," he said, not praise. Confirmation. Deke fired again, panicked now, and the hooded biker returned one shot that shattered Deke's pistol grip. The weapon flew from Deke's hand and skittered across gravel. Deke stared at his empty palm like he couldn't believe physics applied to him. Then, he did what cowards did when the script changed. He lunged for Maya. Travis's voice rang out from somewhere nearby, shouting, "Grab her!" One of Deke's men rushed forward, reaching for Maya's arm. The older biker slammed into him, shoulder first, driving him back into the scrap wall. Another biker hooked Deke's collar and yanked him away from Maya like he was a bag of trash. Maya stumbled, catching herself, lungs burning. And above them, the high shooter fired again, this time closer, the round cracking off metal near Maya's head. The older biker grabbed her and shoved her into the cut path behind the compactors. "Move!" he snapped, louder than before. Maya ran. The path was tight and filthy, lined with spilled oil, broken glass, old bolts. She slipped once, caught herself on a rusted panel, felt the metal bite into her skin. Behind her, boots pounded. A biker's hand gripped her elbow, guiding her forward without slowing. The narrow path opened suddenly into a small clearing by the south fence line. And Maya saw it. The fuel truck parked nose first against the gate, chain wrapped around the posts like a noose. The truck's cab window was fogged, but inside, a shape moved. Someone hunched over the wheel. Cutter was there with two bikers, weapons down, hands up, talking low toward the cab. "Maya," Cutter called, voice raw. "Stay back." The older biker stepped beside Cutter, eyes locked on the cab. He raised his voice, not shouting but firm, carrying. "Whoever you are in that truck, step out." No answer. The shape inside the cab shifted and Maya saw a glint, something metallic near the driver's lap. A detonator. Her blood turned to ice. Because the fuel truck wasn't just blocking the gate, it was a bomb on wheels, and the person inside was ready to light it. Maya stopped so hard her heels slid on gravel. The fuel truck sat pressed against the gate like a battering ram. Its tank was sun-faded, marked with old hazard stickers that made her stomach tighten. The chain around the posts wasn't just wrapped, it was cinched and welded in places, fresh metal still bright. Whoever did it hadn't planned on anyone leaving. Inside the cab, a figure moved, shoulders hunched, head low. The windshield was streaked, the side window fogged with breath. And in the figure's lap, something caught light. A small metal box, a switch, a wire, a detonator. Cutter held both hands up, palms out, his voice low and steady as he spoke toward the cab. "Listen, brother, nobody needs to die here. Step out. Talk to me." The word brother wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. It was a bridge. The older biker stepped forward beside Cutter, posture relaxed but ready, eyes locked on the cab like he could see through the fog. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't bark orders. He spoke like a man who'd learned that panic was contagious. "Driver," he said, "my name's Priest. You don't know me, but you know what this patch means. You're in a fuel truck with a dead end behind you. That's not a plan. That's a funeral." The figure inside the cab jerked, like the voice landed. For a second, nothing moved. Then the cab door clicked. Maya's breath caught. The door opened an inch, then slammed shut again. A voice came through the glass, muffled and shaky. "Back up!" Priest didn't move. "We're not coming closer." "Back up!" the voice screamed, and it sounded young. Too young. Cutter's jaw clenched. "Kid? Don't do this!" The word kid landed hard, and the figure inside went still. Maya's eyes traced the lines around the truck, the wheels, the undercarriage, the way the nose was jammed against the gate. If it blew here, the blast would tear through the fence line and the scrap corridor behind them. It would take the bikers, and it would take her. And maybe that was the point. Not to kill everyone in the yard, to kill the right people, in the right place, with the right story. To make it look like the bikers did it. Behind them, chaos still rolled across Belgrave. Distant gunshots popped. A crane chain clanged like a bell. Sirens started to wail far off. Backup coming late, exactly as planned. Maya's hands were shaking, but she forced herself to look closer at the cab. A sticker on the inside of the windshield, half peeled, a small black and white patch logo. Not Hell's Angels, something else. A smaller crew mark, a local club maybe. One that worked under bigger hands. Priest saw Maya staring. He leaned slightly toward her without taking his eyes off the cab. "You recognize that?" Maya swallowed. "No, but it's not yours." "Didn't think so," Priest murmured. The cab voice screamed again, ragged now. "You think you can scare me? You think I won't do it?" Priest's tone stayed calm. "I don't think you want to." A harsh laugh came from inside, then a choking sound, like the person was crying and trying to hide it. "You don't know what they'll do to me." Cutter's face softened a fraction. "Who'll do what?" Silence. Then a whisper, barely audible through the glass. "Malloy." Maya's stomach tightened. "Deke." Priest's eyes narrowed. "Deke Malloy put you in that truck?" The figure inside the cab shifted. The metal glint moved too, detonator tilting as the person's hands trembled. A second voice cut in from behind Maya, sharp and urgent. "Maya." She turned her head and saw Travis Boone at the mouth of the cut path, half hidden behind scrap. He was breathing hard, eyes wild, hair plastered to his forehead. In his hand was that small black device again, the one with an antenna. He'd followed them. Priest didn't turn fully. He just shifted his stance slightly, shielding Maya. Travis shouted, voice cracking with anger and fear. "You think you can take her? You think you can take what's ours?" Cutter snapped. "Back up!" Travis lifted the device like a trophy. "I got a button too," the cab figure screamed. "No!" Maya's blood ran cold. 2 triggers, one in the cab, one in Travis's hand. Deke had built redundancy. If the driver chickened out, Travis could press it. If Travis got grabbed, the driver could still go through with it. Priest's eyes stayed on Travis now, but he spoke to Maya, low and fast. "Where's Deke?" Maya swallowed. "Back near the compactors, he tried to grab me." Priest's jaw tightened. "So this is his finish line." Travis took a step forward, pointing the device at them like it was a gun. "Everybody on the ground, now!" His voice was desperate. He wasn't commanding. He was trying to keep control before it slipped. Cutter's hand stayed up. "Travis, don't be stupid." Travis's eyes flicked to Maya. "You little rat, you brought them here." Maya's throat tightened. "You sent a truck to my house." Travis's face twisted. "That was a message." Maya's voice came out raw. "A message to my mother too?" For a second, something flickered in Travis's eyes. Hesitation, maybe shame. Then, the distant sirens got louder, and Travis snapped back into fear. "Shut up!" He raised the device higher. "I'll do it. I swear I'll do it." Inside the cab, the figure's fists slammed the steering wheel. "Stop! Stop!" Priest moved one step forward, not toward Travis, but sideways, putting more scrap between them and the cab. He kept his hands visible. "Travis," Priest said, voice like steel wrapped in velvet, "you press that and you're not leaving this fence line alive." Travis barked a laugh that sounded like he didn't believe his own courage. "You ain't gonna shoot me. Your boss wants his bike back. You don't want the cops seeing you murder." Priest interrupted, cold now. "You think this is about a bike?" That landed on Travis. His smile faltered. Priest continued. "That Harley belonged to a man you helped bury, and the thing you're trying to blow up right now? It's the proof." Travis's eyes narrowed. "Proof of what?" Priest didn't answer him. He glanced toward Maya for a fraction of a second, and Maya understood. The cylinder. Whatever was inside it wasn't just a ledger, it was leverage. It was the reason Deke wanted her in cuffs, not dead. He needed her blamed, then removed. Travis's gaze darted to Maya's waist like he was checking if the cylinder was still on her. It wasn't. His eyes widened a fraction. "You gave it to him," Travis whispered. Priest's face didn't change. "Yes." Travis's breathing sped up. He looked over his shoulder as if expecting Deke to appear and save him. Instead, a loudspeaker voice boomed from the yard side. Sheriff Halverson, finally acting like law enforcement. "This is Sheriff Halverson. Everyone at the south gate, drop your weapons and step away from the vehicle." Halverson's voice didn't sound like he cared about the fuel truck. It sounded like he cared about being heard on record. Travis's head snapped toward the sound. "Sheriff, they've got the girl! They've got—" Priest's eyes narrowed. "He's talking to you like you're his co-worker." Maya's stomach twisted. Halverson wasn't coming to save anyone. He was coming to control the narrative. The cab figure started sobbing openly now, voice muffled. "Please, I don't want to. Cutter lowered his voice, gentle. "Then don't. Open the door. Let us pull you out." The cab door handle moved slowly from inside. Travis saw it too. His face hardened. "No." He raised the device and his thumb hovered over the button. Maya's body moved before her mind caught up. She lunged, not at Travis, but toward the ground beside her where a length of rusted chain lay half buried in gravel. She snatched it up and hurled it with everything she had. The chain whipped through the air and smashed into Travis's forearm. The device flew from his hand, skittering across gravel toward the fence. Travis screamed and grabbed his arm, stumbling. Cutter reacted instantly. 2 strides, diving low, sliding on gravel to cover the device with his body so nobody could reach it. Priest moved toward Travis like a shadow. Travis backed up, eyes wild. Don't touch me!" Priest grabbed Travis's collar and slammed him against the scrap wall, pinning him. "Where's the other trigger?" he demanded. Travis spat, eyes bright with panic. "In the cab, always in the cab." Priest's eyes snapped to the truck. The cab figure's hands were on the door now, shaking. Priest shouted, loud enough to cut through everything. "Don't open it yet!" Too late. The cab door swung open and a young man tumbled out onto the gravel, maybe 19, skinny, face streaked with sweat and tears. His hands were empty. But behind him, in the cab, wires ran under the seat, and a second device sat on the passenger side floor. The kid cried, "I didn't press it! I didn't!" Cutter crawled backward, still shielding the first device, shouting, "Priest, there's a second one!" Priest's eyes locked on the cab floor. Then his gaze flicked up fast toward the salvage yard stacks, because the high shooter had gone quiet, and silence up there meant repositioning. Maya's chest tightened. "What now?" Priest grabbed the kid by the jacket and yanked him behind the truck's front wheel, using it as cover. "Now we stop the story they're trying to write." He looked at Maya, voice low, urgent. "You're coming with me." Maya blinked. "Where?" Priest's answer was immediate. "To the only man who can end this without a match." He jerked his head back toward the yard. "Deke." Priest didn't wait for Maya to agree. He took her wrist, not rough, not gentle, just certain, and pulled her back through the cut path toward the heart of the salvage yard. Cutter stayed behind with 2 men to secure the triggers and keep the kid alive, while the rest of the perimeter riders held the south gate line like a dam. Behind them, Sheriff Halverson's loudspeaker kept barking orders that nobody followed. It sounded less like command and more like a man narrating for an imaginary camera. "This is law enforcement. Step away from the vehicle," Priest muttered. "He wants audio, not a solution." They moved low between scrap walls, using stacks as cover. Maya's lungs burned from running in fear. Her palms were slick. The yard smelled like fuel and hot metal now, the kind of smell that made everything feel one spark away from becoming a headline. As they neared the main lanes again, the chaos sharpened. The crane arm above West Row swung and then stilled, as if whoever controlled it was waiting for a better moment. Forklifts sat abandoned like frozen animals. Workers lay behind piles, peeking through gaps. Some were filming with shaking hands. Bikers were spread in controlled positions, not forming a brawl, forming lanes of safety. They waved civilians down, pushed them behind cover, held lines. It was the opposite of the riot the sheriff wanted. Priest steered Maya behind a stack of engine blocks and leaned close. "Listen," he said. "In a few minutes you'll hear shouting, maybe sirens, maybe another shot. None of that matters. You don't move unless I move." Maya swallowed. "Where are we going?" Priest's eyes tracked the office container across the open lane. Deke's white metal box sat with its door half open, like it was breathing. "There," Priest said. "That's where your paperwork lives." Maya's stomach tightened. "He'll say I stole it." "He already did," Priest replied. "That's why you're going to say something first." "What do you mean?" Priest's hand pressed the front of his vest, feeling for the cylinder. "That thing you pulled out of the Harley, whatever's in it, was hidden because someone didn't want it found. If Deke gets it back, it disappears again. If the sheriff gets it, it disappears with a stamp on it." Maya stared at him. "So what do we do?" Priest's mouth tightened. "We make it public." Maya's thoughts snapped to her mom alone in the trailer, to the black truck, to the envelope with the photo. Public sounded like a word people said right before they died. Priest read it on her face. "Public doesn't mean brave speeches," he said. "Public means you don't let one man own the story." He glanced past her shoulder. 2 bikers moved along the scrap line toward the office container's backside, quiet as shadows, setting positions. "We're going to the container," Priest said. "You're going to point at what you saw. You're going to tell me where the Harley was buried. You're going to tell me who tried to put cuffs on you, and you're going to do it where cameras can't be killed." Maya's throat tightened. "Your cameras?" Priest shook his head slightly. "Everybody's cameras. The town, the workers, whoever's streaming. If it's in 10 phones at once, Halverson can't erase it." Maya felt cold. "Deke will try to kill me." Priest's voice stayed low. "He already tried." A sharp crack echoed from somewhere high again. 1 shot, then silence. Not near them, but close enough to make everyone flinch. Priest didn't flinch. He counted under his breath, listening to the direction and the decay of the echo. Then he said, "He's repositioning." "He?" Maya whispered. "The shooter up top." Priest's eyes swept the scrap towers. "He's not here to hit us. He's here to control us, to make a moment. A moment, like a staged arrest, like a staged explosion, like a staged biker riot." Maya realized suddenly that nothing she'd done had been the first domino. The dominoes were lined up long before she found the Harley. She'd just bumped into them. They moved again, crossing a short open patch between 2 stacks. Priest pulled her by the elbow, fast, then slammed them behind a crushed bus frame. From here, Maya could see the office container more clearly. and she saw Deke. He stood in the doorway with a phone pressed to his ear, face tight with rage. Travis was with him, one arm dangling, still in pain, still alive, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Two of Deke's men held rifles low, sweeping the lanes. Deke snapped into the phone. "I don't care. Do it now. He's here. They're here." Priest watched, eyes flat. "He's calling the final act." Maya's mouth went dry. "What's the final act?" Before Priest could answer, Halverson's cruiser rolled closer, tires crunching gravel, positioning itself at a slight angle as cover. Classic. The sheriff stepped out, weapon drawn now, chest out like he'd finally decided to play hero. He shouted across the lanes, "All of you, hands visible! You are trespassing on private property. Anyone interfering will be detained." His eyes kept flicking toward the line of bikers, hunting for a reaction. He wanted someone to give him a reason. Priest leaned out from behind the bus frame and raised his voice, not shouting, just carrying. "Sheriff," he called, "you gonna arrest the guy shooting at civilians too?" Halverson's head snapped toward Priest. "Who the hell are you?" Priest didn't answer the identity question. He raised his voice again. "There's a shooter in your yard. There's a fuel truck wired to blow at the south gate, and you're talking about trespassing." Halverson's face flushed. "Step out where I can see you." Priest stayed behind cover. "I can see you fine." A few workers started filming again, their hands braver when they heard a calm voice calling the sheriff out. Deke saw the shift. His eyes moved across the lane and found Priest's position, his lips pulled back, more snarl than smile. He shouted, "Sheriff, that's the one! That's the leader! He threatened my people!" Halverson latched on instantly. "You, drop your weapon and come out!" Priest called back. "You first! Drop your paycheck!" Halverson's face twitched. Maya's pulse hammered. The yard felt like a pot about to boil over. Priest leaned close to Maya again. "When I move, and you keep your eyes on Deke, not Halverson." Maya swallowed. "Why?" "Because Halverson's a puppet," Priest said. "Deke's the hand." Then he did something that made Maya's stomach flip. Priest pulled out his phone and handed it to her. On the screen was a live recording interface, camera on, red dot blinking. "You're filming," he said. Maya's hands shook. Why me?" "Because you're the witness they can't call a biker," Priest replied. "You're the thing they didn't plan for." Maya's throat tightened. She held the phone up, framing Deke, Halverson, the office container. Priest straightened, then raised his voice again. "Deke Malloy," he called. Deke's eyes narrowed. "Yeah?" Priest's tone stayed level. "That Harley you hid in West Row? Who told you to bury it here?" Deke laughed harshly. "I don't know what you're talking about." Priest nodded once. "Okay." He stepped out from behind cover into the open lane. Every biker nearby tensed, some shifting forward half a step, but Priest lifted one hand slightly. "Stay." Halverson immediately raised his gun higher. "Stop right there." Priest stopped, hands visible, posture calm. He wasn't giving them a reason. "Sheriff," Priest said, "if you're serious about law, walk with me to West Row, right now. Let your people see what your private property has been hiding." Halverson barked, "I'm not taking orders from—" Priest cut him off quietly. "Then take them from your conscience, or from the cameras." Maya's phone shook as she filmed. She forced it steady, focusing on Halverson's face, the way he hesitated, the way his eyes kept checking Deke before he spoke. Deke sensed it too. His voice rose, trying to reclaim the yard. "Sheriff, arrest him! He's interfering with an investigation." Priest turned his head slightly toward Deke. "An investigation into what, Deke? Scrap? Or the missing bikes your guys have been moving through county auctions?" Deke's face hardened. "You better watch your mouth." Priest's tone didn't change. "Or what? You'll send another truck to another girl's house?" That landed like a brick. Maya felt her whole body go cold. The words were out in the open now, spoken where workers could hear, where phones could record. A murmur rippled through the Salvage employees. Deke's gaze snapped to Maya's hands, to the phone. He recognized the angle, recognized the threat. He pointed at her. "Put that down." Maya didn't move. Her hands were shaking, but she held the frame. Priest spoke again, steady, relentless. "Maya Cross found the Harley. Maya Cross got threatened, Maya Cross got framed, and now you're trying to make her disappear under a badge." Halverson snapped, "That's enough." Priest took a slow step toward the office container. "Walk with me," he said, "or explain why you won't." Halverson stood frozen behind his cruiser door, gun still up, eyes flicking between Priest and Deke. Deke's jaw worked. Then he made his decision. He turned slightly toward Travis and said something too low for Maya to hear. Travis nodded once and slipped inside the office container. Maya's stomach dropped. "What's he doing?" Priest's eyes narrowed. "Lighting something." Then the crane above West Row moved again, faster this time, and from the far side of the yard, near the compactors, an engine roared to life, not a bike. A fuel truck's twin. Another tanker, hidden behind scrap, started rolling forward into the main lanes, straight toward where workers were huddled. Maya's voice broke. "Oh my God!" Halverson shouted, loud and panicked now. "Everybody back, back!" But it was too late for orderly movement. People scrambled, someone tripped, someone screamed. Priest's voice stayed calm, cutting through. "They're going to blame us for that." He turned to Maya, grabbed her shoulder, and steered her hard left toward a line of crushed cars that could shield them. "Keep filming," he said. "If that truck hits anything and sparks, if it explodes, your video is the difference between the truth and a funeral story." Maya's hands shook so badly the frame blurred, but she forced it back onto the moving tanker. The tanker rolled closer, gaining speed. And in the driver's seat, Maya saw a silhouette that wasn't Deke's man. It was the kid from the south gate. No, wait. Not the kid. Someone else. Bigger shoulders, a cap brim, the same shape that had tapped her mailbox the night before. Maya's breath stopped, because the person driving the tanker wasn't improvising. He was executing the plan that started at her front door. The tanker rolled out from behind the compactors like it had been waiting for its cue. It wasn't a clean fuel truck like the one jammed against the south gate. This one looked older, dirt-streaked, with a dented tank and faded hazard labels. But it moved with purpose, straight down the main lane, aimed at the knot of workers scrambling for cover. Maya kept filming, hands shaking so hard the phone threatened to slip. Priest's grip tightened on her shoulder. "Track the driver," he said. "Don't lose him." Maya zoomed in as the truck passed a gap between stacked frames, and she saw the cap brim, a man's silhouette, broad shoulders, one hand high on the wheel, the other low, like he was holding something near his thigh. It wasn't Deke. It wasn't Halverson. It was the same shape she'd watched step out of the black truck at her mailbox, the same slow confidence, the same feeling of being watched and measured. Maya's breath turned thin. "That's him." Priest didn't ask who. He didn't need to. His eyes were already calculating angles, escape routes, what the truck could do if it hit scrap and sparked. "Get low," Priest ordered. Maya ducked behind the crushed car line with him, keeping the camera pointed through a narrow gap between two twisted doors. The tanker's engine roared louder, swallowing voices. Halverson shouted something, orders maybe, but it sounded small now, useless. Deke stood near his office container, eyes locked on the moving truck. He wasn't surprised. He was tense, yes, but not confused, like he knew exactly what was supposed to happen next. Travis burst out of the office container, sprinting toward Halverson with both hands up, yelling something that Maya couldn't hear over the tanker. Priest watched him and muttered, "He's feeding the sheriff his lines." Maya's camera caught Halverson turning, reacting, posture shifting into performance. Halverson raised his gun toward the bikers, not toward the tanker. "Back up, all of you, back up!" He wanted the frame, bikers, gun, chaos. He wanted the moment when someone panicked and pulled a trigger so he could say it was their fault. The tanker kept coming. One worker stumbled in the lane and fell hard. Another tried to lift him. They moved too slow. Priest snapped, "Move them!" Two bikers sprinted, not toward Deke, not toward Halverson, toward the workers. They grabbed the fallen man by the shoulders and dragged him behind a stack, saving him in full view of anyone filming. Maya kept filming, breath ragged. Her phone frame caught it all, bikers saving civilians, while the sheriff aimed at bikers. The tanker hit a pile of loose scrap, not hard enough to stop, hard enough to make sparks jump. Maya flinched, almost losing the shot. She forced the phone steady again. Sparks plus fuel truck equals the kind of headline nobody survived. Priest's voice stayed calm, but the edge was sharper now. "He's trying to trigger ignition," Maya whispered. "He's going to blow the yard." Priest's eyes didn't leave the truck. "Not the whole yard." He pointed with his chin toward the bike formation. "He's going to blow us." The tanker veered slightly, subtle, controlled, correcting its line not toward the workers anymore, toward the semicircle of bikes. Maya's stomach dropped. "He's turning." Priest's jaw clenched. "He's steering for bodies and cameras." Halverson's face lit up with a sick kind of opportunity. He stepped into the open, shouting louder, making sure every phone caught his voice. "Drop your weapons! Get on the ground!" The bikers didn't comply. They repositioned, rolling backward in disciplined increments, creating space, avoiding a pileup. Deke's men, rifles low, started moving too, but not to stop the tanker, to herd, to keep the bikers from escaping the perfect angle. Maya's phone caught Deke glancing toward a camera pole, checking if it was still live. It wasn't. Patch had killed some, but not the phones, not Maya's. Priest leaned close. "You see Halverson? He's not scared. He's staging." Maya's voice came out dry. "How do we stop the truck?" Priest's eyes flicked to the stacks above. "Shooter's quiet again," he said, "which means he's watching this lane. He fires if we rush the driver." Maya's mind raced. The driver, the cap brim, the man from her mailbox. He wasn't just a driver. He was the final piece. Maya's camera zoomed in again as the tanker passed another gap. For a fraction of a second, the driver's face turned toward the lane. Maya saw enough to know he wasn't local yard muscle, older than Travis, harder than Deke, scar at the jawline, eyes like he'd done this before and slept fine after. Then he lifted his left hand, briefly, from the wheel, and tapped the brim of his cap, mocking, exactly like he had at her mailbox. Maya's throat tightened so hard she almost couldn't breathe. "He's the one who left the envelope." Priest's voice was low, lethal. "He's the one running the whole play." The tanker accelerated again. It was close enough now that Maya could see a taped bundle wedged near the dashboard. Wires, maybe. A crude ignition rig. Or a remote receiver. Then her phone caught something else. A small sticker on the inside of the windshield, just like the one on the fuel truck at the south gate. Same black and white patch logo. The same smaller crew mark. 2 trucks, 2 triggers, 1 logo, a coordinated team. Priest's hand slid to his vest, checking the cylinder again. Then he looked at Maya like he was making a choice. "Maya," he said, "you said there's only 1 main gate and 1 chain service gate." Maya nodded, confused. "Yes." Priest's eyes narrowed. "Then why would they need 2 fuel trucks?" Maya blinked. "To make sure one works?" Priest shook his head slightly. "No, one's the bomb." He pointed at the tanker rolling toward the bikes. "This one's the match. It's meant to hit something metal, spark, and light the south truck. Chains welded so the blast channel's right through the cut path and into the yard." Maya's blood turned to ice. She pictured it instantly, fireball ripping through the narrow corridor they'd just run through. A funnel of heat and shrapnel. "Cutter's back there," she whispered. Priest's voice tightened. "And the kid." Maya's hands shook. Her camera frame wobbled. Priest grabbed her wrists gently but firm and steadied the phone. "Keep it on Halverson and Deke," he said. "I need their faces when this goes wrong." Maya swallowed. "What are you going to do?" Priest turned, shouted a single word toward the nearest bikers, sharp and commanding. "Block!" 2 bikes surged forward, not into the tanker's path, but across it, angling to force it to slow and redirect. A 3rd bike slid behind them, ready to yank something, jam something, do anything that didn't require a gunshot. The tanker driver didn't panic. He smiled. Maya saw it in the flash of his cheek as he leaned forward. He stomped the gas. The tanker lunged. The blocking bikes barely had time to swerve. One clipped the tanker's side and skidded, sparks showering. Maya's heart stopped. Sparks. This was the ignition. Priest's eyes snapped to the south corridor, as if he expected a blast any second. But instead of an explosion, something else happened. From inside the office container, a loudspeaker crackled to life. Deke's PA system, the one he used for safety announcements, and Travis's voice blasted across the yard, shaking with adrenaline, loud enough for every phone to record. "They brought a bomb! The bikers brought a bomb!" Maya's stomach dropped. That was it. That was the headline. Halverson turned toward the crowd, weapon raised, shouting over the PA, "Everyone get back! This is a terrorist attack!" Priest's face went cold. Maya kept filming as Halverson's eyes flicked, not to the fuel trucks, not to the shooter, to Deke. A silent check. "Are we ready?" Deke nodded once. Then, high above on the scrap stacks, the shooter finally fired again. Not at Priest, not at the bikers, at the tanker's front tire. The tire exploded. The tanker swerved violently, and the driver, cap brim low, yanked the wheel hard, sending the tanker's nose directly toward the cut path that led to the south gate, toward the bomb truck. Maya's voice broke. "He's driving it to the other truck." Priest grabbed her by the collar and pulled her backward away from the lane. "Run!" he shouted. Maya stumbled, still filming, and in the frame she caught the last clean image before everything tipped. Deke smiling, Halverson shouting, and the tanker driver tapping his cap one more time, like a man saying goodbye, as he aimed straight for the chained gate. Maya ran because Priest's hand on her collar wasn't a suggestion, it was gravity. He yanked her behind a wall of crushed sedans just as the tanker tore past the lane markers and barreled into the narrow-cut path, straight toward the south gate where Cutter and the kid were. The sound of it was wrong, too heavy for the space, metal scraping metal. The tanker's sides kissing scrap walls, sparks spitting like a fuse. Maya's phone was still up, still recording. The frame shook so hard it was mostly blur and noise, but the audio caught everything. Travis screaming through the PA, Halverson yelling, "Terrorist attack," engines revving, people wailing. Priest grabbed her wrist again. "Stay down," he said. Maya dropped, dirt in her mouth, eyes burning. She forced the phone toward the opening between two crushed doors. Through that slit, she saw the tanker vanish into the cut path like a bullet entering a throat. And then she heard Cutter. "Back! Back!" Cutter's voice boomed from the south line, urgent and raw, cutting through everything. "Move him! Move him!" The kid's voice followed, higher, terrified. I didn't! Maya's stomach twisted. She pictured Cutter trying to drag the kid away while still covering the trigger device. She pictured the bomb truck, the welded chain, the narrow corridor becoming a chimney. Priest didn't wait. He rose into a crouch, snapped his head to the nearest bikers. "Cutter's line!" he barked. 4 bikers moved immediately, sprinting low across lanes using stacks as cover, not shooting, not posturing, running to rescue. Halverson saw them and screamed into his radio, voice hysterical with performance. "They're advancing! They're advancing! Take them down!" He pointed his gun and fired once, wild. The shot cracked off scrap somewhere harmless, but it sounded like authority. Maya's phone caught it, the sheriff firing at people who were running to stop a blast. Priest turned his head slightly, eyes on Halverson, and his calm finally hardened into something sharp. "He wants a body," he muttered. "He wants a badge excuse." Deke's office container door slammed, and Deke stepped out, face set. Not panic, not surprise. Just a man watching his own plan unfold. He raised his voice to Halverson. "Sheriff, it's them. They're trying to set it off." Halverson nodded like a puppet getting its next line. "All units, contain the bikers." Contain. Like this was a riot, like there weren't 2 fuel trucks and a high shooter. Maya's lungs burned. She couldn't make her hands steady. She kept filming anyway, keeping Deke and Halverson in frame as best she could, because Priest had been right. If she dropped the camera, the story belonged to them. The cut path screamed with metal. Then, silence. A single beat where the whole yard seemed to inhale. Maya's heart locked. She expected the fireball. Instead, a new sound came, an engine choking, then straining, like something big had hit resistance. Priest's eyes narrowed. "They stopped it," he said, but it wasn't relief. It was calculation. Maya whispered, "Cutter?" Priest didn't answer. He watched the cut path mouth as if he could see through scrap. Then, a biker sprinted back into view from the south line, helmet off, face streaked with soot, eyes wide. "Priest!" he shouted. "Tanker's jammed sideways. It's wedged against the bomb truck, chains holding, but—" A distant click cut him off, a sharp metallic sound that didn't belong in the chaos. Priest's head snapped up. Maya followed his gaze. Above the stacks, high on the scrap ridge, a small glint moved, sunlight on a scope. The shooter had repositioned to watch the cut path mouth, to watch the ignition point. Priest's voice went low. "He's waiting for someone to try to clear it." Maya's stomach dropped. "Then what do we do?" Priest looked at her. Really looked like he was weighing risk on her life. Then he pulled the cylinder from inside his vest and put it into her hands. It was heavier than she remembered, not just metal, meaning. "Maya," he said, "you're going to run." Her throat tightened. "Where?" "Out of this yard," he said, "to a place with signal. You get this in the hands of someone who can't be bought." Maya stared at the cylinder. I can't just leave. Cutter. Priest's eyes stayed steady. Cutter knows the job. You're the only one here who can carry the truth out if they burn this place down. Maya's hands shook around the cylinder. And my mom, Priest didn't blink. They already went to your house. If this goes wrong, the only shield your mom gets is exposure. Exposure. The word felt cruel. But Maya knew what he meant. Truth was the only thing Deacon Halverson couldn't bury if it spread fast enough. Priest leaned closer. You know the yard better than we do. Is there any way out besides the gates? Maya's mind raced, scanning the property. Scrap walls, fences, a drainage ditch along the east boundary. She pictured it, muddy, narrow, running under the back fence where the ground dipped. There's a storm culvert, she whispered. East side. It runs under the fence into the dry creek bed behind the pawn shop. Priest nodded instantly. Show me. Maya hesitated. The yard felt like it was tightening around them. Then the PA crackled again. Travis's voice, ragged, high on fear and power. Sheriff, they're trying to run evidence. Check the east fence. Maya's blood went cold. He'd guessed, or someone had told him. Priest's eyes narrowed. He's not guessing, he murmured. He's watching you. Maya's phone buzzed in her other hand. She hadn't even realized it was still connected. A notification flashed. Upload failed. No signal. Priest grabbed her shoulder. Move now, he said. They went, low, fast, weaving through stacks and dead lanes, staying in shadows. Bikers peeled off to create movement elsewhere, engines revving, tires squealing, drawing eyes. A diversion done with discipline, not chaos. Maya ran with Priest and two riders behind her. The cylinder thumped against her ribs inside her jacket now, wrapped in her shirt like a secret baby. Shots cracked overhead. Warning shots, steering shots, none close enough to hit yet, but close enough to make Maya feel hunted. They reached the east side where the fence line dipped behind a pile of crushed appliances. The ground here was uneven, muddy, rutted by rain and runoff. The smell changed, less oil, more wet earth. Maya dropped to her knees and crawled behind the appliance pile, finding the culvert opening, half hidden by weeds and trash. A dark, circular mouth, maybe 3 feet wide, breathing cold air. There, she whispered. Priest crouched beside her. Can you fit? Yes, Maya said, then swallowed. But it's filthy. Priest's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. So is this county. He motioned to the two riders. One stayed back scanning. The other moved closer, pulling out a small flashlight and tossing it into the culvert. The beam bounced down the tunnel, revealing wet concrete and shallow water. Maya stared into it. All she could think about was her mom's oxygen machine humming in the dark and Deke's envelope on her table. Priest leaned close, voice low and absolute. You get out. You run to somewhere with signal and you send this out to anyone, everyone, lawyers, news, whatever you can reach. Maya's hands trembled. What about you? Priest's eyes were hard now. I'm going to stop them from rewriting today. Maya's throat tightened. You can't. Halverson, Deke, there's a shooter. Priest cut in, quiet. That's why I can't leave. A sound behind them, boots on gravel, closer than they should have been. Priest turned his head. The rider scanning the perimeter raised a hand, 2 fingers, 2 approaching. Maya's heart slammed. Voices drifted from the scrap lane behind the appliances. Over here, I saw movement. Not a worker voice, not a biker. Travis's voice, tense and eager. She's got something. She's got the... Priest's jaw tightened. He looked at Maya. Go. Maya didn't move fast enough. Fear made her sticky. Priest shoved the cylinder deeper into her jacket and pushed her toward the culvert opening. Go. Maya crawled in, knees and palms hitting wet concrete. Cold water soaked her jeans instantly. Behind her the voices got louder, gravel crunching. Travis barked, There! That's her! Maya shoved forward, dragging herself into the tunnel, flashlight beam wobbling ahead. A gunshot cracked behind her, too close. Concrete dust puffed inside the tunnel as the bullet struck the rim. Maya screamed, kept moving. Then Priest's voice roared outside, no longer calm. Travis! A thud, a scuffle, metal clanging. Maya crawled faster, water splashing, breath choking. The tunnel stretched longer than she expected. The air smelled like mud and rot. Her hands slipped on slime, but she clawed forward anyway. Another gunshot, muffled now by concrete. Then a shout, one of the bikers strained. "Priest! More coming!" Maya's lungs burned. She couldn't help them from here. She could only carry the truth. The tunnel's end appeared as a faint gray circle of daylight. She dragged herself toward it, soaked, shaking, and burst out into the dry creek bed behind the pawn shop, gasping like she'd been pulled from underwater. She stumbled to her feet and ran, muddy, soaked, clutching her jacket tight around the cylinder, toward the road where signal might exist. Behind her, from inside Belgrave Salvage, came a sound that didn't belong to guns or engines, a deep, hollow boom, like a fuel tank flexing under pressure, not an explosion, a warning, a countdown starting. Maya ran until her lungs tasted like pennies. The creek bed dumped her behind the pawn shop, out in the open where the world looked normal. Sunlight on cracked asphalt, a faded "We Buy Gold" sign buzzing, cars passing like nothing was happening a half-mile away. But the air still carried it, fuel, hot metal, distant sirens. She fumbled her phone out with shaking hands and saw it, 2 bars of signal flickering in and out like a dying heartbeat. Good enough. She ducked behind the pawn shop dumpster, pulled the cylinder from her jacket and stared at it like it might start ticking. Mercy. Her fingers slid over the etched wings. She wanted to open it, but Priest hadn't. He'd treated it like something that shouldn't be exposed in the wrong hands. So Maya did the only thing she could do fast. She filmed it, close up, the symbol, the word, her own voice over it, breathless and ragged. "My name is Maya Cross. I work at Belgrave Salvage. I found a black Harley with a custom stripe and Mercy marked on it. The salvage yard owner, Deke Malloy, and Sheriff Halverson tried to arrest me for it. There are shots fired in the yard right now, and 2 fuel trucks wired at the south gate." She paused, swallowed, and forced herself to keep going even though her voice shook. "They're trying to blame the bikers. The sheriff is pointing his gun at the bikers, not the shooter. The yard is being locked down." She ended the clip and immediately hit send to herself, to her mom's old church friend, whose son worked at a local station, to an email address she found on the county commissioner's site, and to every local news tip line she could think of. Her hands moved faster than her fear. Then she opened her camera roll and found the live recording she'd been making earlier, the one Priest put in her hands. It was long, shaky, but it had the truth in frames. Halverson's hesitation, Deke's nod, Travis's PA scream. Upload. A circle spun, failed. Maya's stomach clenched. No, come on. She moved out from behind the dumpster, closer to the street, holding the phone higher like that would pull signal from the sky. 1 bar, 2, upload. The circle spun again. This time it crawled forward, and while it crawled, a memory hit her like a slap. The printout photo in the envelope, the yard camera angle. Deke had eyes everywhere. That meant he'd already know she'd escaped. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped so hard she almost threw up. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering. She answered. "Maya," a voice said, familiar poison. "Deke." Her throat tightened. "How did you—" "You got out," Deke said, calm now, like he wasn't standing in a war zone. "Clever." Maya's eyes flicked toward the road, cars passing, people living. "This is recorded," she said, lying, hoping it mattered. Deke chuckled. "Record whatever you want." In the background of his call, Maya could hear faint shouting, engines, the high metallic screech of machinery, and under it all, something worse. A steady, strained groan, like steel under pressure. "Where's Priest?" Maya demanded, voice cracking. "Where's Cutter? Where's the kid?" Deke's tone stayed smooth. "You should be worrying about your mother." Maya froze. Cold rushed through her body. Don't what?" Deke asked softly. "Don't do what you already did? You stuck your nose into grown folks' business, Maya." "And now you want to play hero?" Maya's hand tightened around the phone. "I sent it out." A beat of silence. Then Deke's voice sharpened a fraction. "Sent what out?" Maya swallowed. "Everything." Another beat. Then Deke laughed, short, amused. "You think an email stops a fire?" he said. Maya's voice came out raw. "If my mom gets hurt," Deke cut her off. "If she gets hurt, it's because you made me do it." The manipulation was so clean, it made Maya dizzy. Then Deke said, almost conversationally, "You know what's funny? People always think the explosion is the ending." Maya's blood turned to ice. "What explosion?" Deke's voice dropped, intimate. The explosion is just the middle. The ending is the story. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, breath shaking. Then she looked at the upload bar. It was at 80%, 82, 85. Come on, come on. Her screen flickered, signal pulsing, and then, finally, the upload completed. Maya exhaled a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She wasn't done, but she'd pushed the truth into the world. Now she had to get home. She sprinted up the road toward her trailer, every muscle screaming. She cut behind the laundromat, vaulted a low fence, ran through an alley that smelled like piss and frying oil, and hit her porch so hard the steps groaned. "Mom," she yelled, fumbling her keys. No answer. Her hands shook as she jammed the key into the lock. The door swung open. Inside, the trailer was silent except for the oxygen concentrator humming. Maya rushed to the back room. Her mother lay on the bed, eyes open, breathing shallow through the tube. Relief hit so hard Maya almost collapsed. "Mom," she whispered, grabbing her hand. "I'm here." Her mother's eyes flicked toward the living room, fear behind them. "They came," she rasped. Maya's stomach clenched. "Who came?" Her mother swallowed. "A man. He said he was from the county. He asked about you." Maya's blood went cold. "What did he look like?" Her mother's voice shook. "Cap quiet. He tapped the brim like he was being polite." Maya's heart slammed. The tanker driver. Her mother squeezed Maya's fingers weakly. "He said, if you don't bring back what you took, he'll come back." Maya's vision narrowed. "Did he touch you?" Her mother shook her head, tears pooling. "No, he just looked around like he owned the place." Maya stood up slowly, mind snapping into a hard, clear line. This wasn't just Deke. This was the man behind Deke, the one who could walk into her home and leave without rushing. Her phone buzzed again, this time not a call. A notification. Local news. Alert, shots fired reported at Belgrave Salvage. Reports of biker unrest. Sheriff asks public to avoid area. They were already writing the story. Maya's jaw clenched. She opened the video she'd uploaded and copied the link again, sending it to every contact she could find. Local reporters, state police tip line, FBI public tips, anyone whose email didn't bounce. Then her phone lit with a message from an unknown number. One line. "Bring the cylinder back to the yard, or she dies." Maya's stomach turned. She stared at her mother's fragile chest rising and falling, and she realized the truth was out, but it hadn't saved her yet. Outside, somewhere down the street, an engine idled, low, patient, close. Maya stood in the doorway of her mother's room with the phone still glowing in her hand, the message burning into her eyes. "Bring the cylinder back to the yard, or she dies." Outside, the engine idled low and steady, too close, too patient, not a neighbor, not a delivery. The same kind of idle she'd heard the night before. Her mother's fingers tightened weakly around Maya's. "Don't go," she whispered. Maya's throat tightened so hard it hurt. She wanted to say she wouldn't. She wanted to promise, but promises didn't stop men like this. Instead, she forced herself to think like Priest had taught her in the yard, control the story or get buried in it. "Mom," Maya said, keeping her voice low, "do you trust me?" Her mother's eyes shone, terrified and tired. "I don't have a choice," Maya nodded once. "You do. You trust me because I'm going to make them come into the light." She moved to the kitchen table, grabbed a notepad, and wrote a single address with shaking hands. The church friend's house. 2 blocks away, a place with people and phones and eyes. Then she dialed that friend. It rang once, twice. A woman answered, breathless. "Maya? Honey, I saw Mrs. Hanley," Maya cut in. "I need you to come to my trailer right now. Bring your son if he's home, and don't come alone." "What? Please," Maya said, voice cracking. "And call state police, not the sheriff." The line went quiet for half a second. Then, "I'm on my way." Maya ended the call and turned to her mom. "Shoes," she said softly. "We're leaving." Her mother stared. "I can't." "You can," Maya said, and hated herself for how hard her voice sounded. "Because if we stay, he comes inside." Another text buzzed in. A photo. It was her trailer, taken from outside right now. The porch, the door, the angle of the window, like a reminder that he was already here. Maya's stomach turned, but her mind got sharp. She slid the cylinder from inside her jacket and held it for 1 second. It felt like a brick made of consequences. Then she did something she hadn't done yet. She opened it. The cap was tight, sealed with a thin ring of adhesive. Maya used the star-shaped fastener, still in her pocket like a talisman, and pried at the seam. The seal gave with a soft pop. Inside was a rolled strip of thin metal film and a tiny flash drive wrapped in wax paper. The film was etched with numbers, VINs, dates, names, rows and rows, not just theft, a ledger. And tucked beneath it, a small plastic sleeve with a single photo, a dead man. Face bruised, eyes half open, a patch on his chest. Same patch logo Maya had seen on the fuel truck sticker. Not Hell's Angels. Another crew. The message was clear. This wasn't a random theft ring, it was a chain. And someone at the top had been cleaning links. Maya's hands shook so hard the film rattled, but she grabbed her phone and started recording again. Close up on the flash drive, the etched film, the photo. "My name is Maya Cross," she said, voice low and fierce. "This was hidden inside the Harley at Belgrave Salvage. This is evidence of stolen bikes and payments, and at least one murder." She saved it. Then she sent it. Not to one person. To every contact she'd already spammed, again, with the new footage. If she died, the evidence wouldn't. The engine outside cut off. Silence, then footsteps on the porch. Slow, confident, 3 knocks on the door, not hard, polite. Maya stepped in front of the door to her mother's room, spine rigid, and called out, "Go away!" A man's voice answered through the door, calm, almost friendly. "Maya." Not Deke, the other one, the cap-brim man. Maya's blood went cold. "You're not from the county." A soft chuckle. "No." Maya's hand tightened around her phone. "My video's already out." "Good," the man said. "That means you understand leverage." The door handle didn't turn yet. He wasn't forcing entry. He was controlling tempo. "You bring the cylinder back," he said, "and your mother lives. You don't, and you watch her die slow." Maya's voice came out raw. "Why do you care about a cylinder if you already set the yard on fire?" A pause. Then the man said, softer, "Because you opened something that wasn't meant to be opened." Maya swallowed. "Priest has it." Another pause, small, dangerous. "You're lying," the man said. Maya's heart hammered. She forced her voice steady. "You're here, talking to me, because you don't know where it is." Silence stretched. Then the man tapped the brim of his cap against the door. Maya could hear the faint, stupid sound through metal and wood, like a signature. "I'll come back," he said. "Soon." His footsteps retreated, slow, unhurried. Maya didn't move until she heard an engine start down the street and roll away. Only then did she breathe. Her mother was crying quietly now, shoulders shaking. Maya went to her, wrapped her arms around her, careful of the oxygen tube. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered. Her mother's voice was small. "What did you do?" Maya swallowed. "I told the truth." Sirens wailed in the distance again, closer this time, not toward the yard, toward her neighborhood. Maya's phone buzzed with a new notification. Her video was being reposted, shared, screenshotted. A local reporter had replied, "Call me now." Then another, "State police en route." The story was slipping out of Deke's hands. But it wasn't done, because the people at the top didn't panic when the truth surfaced. They adapted. A car pulled up in front of Maya's trailer. Old sedan, not the black truck. Mrs. Hanley jumped out, breathless, and behind her, her son held his phone up, already recording. "We're here," Mrs. Hanley said, eyes wide. "State troopers are coming. Get your mom." Maya moved fast, helping her mother up, one arm under her shoulder, guiding her to the door. They stepped onto the porch, just as 2 state police cruisers turned the corner, lights flashing, sirens low and controlled. Not like Halverson's show. Controlled. Troopers got out in body armor, scanning, hands disciplined. One of them moved straight to Maya. "Are you Maya Cross?" he asked. "Yes," Maya said, voice shaking. "Yes." "We saw your uploads," the trooper said. "Where's the evidence now?" Maya held up the flash drive and metal film. "Here." The trooper's eyes sharpened. He nodded to his partner, who immediately bagged it in an evidence pouch and sealed it. Maya's knees almost gave. She didn't know she'd been holding that breath for days, And then, like the world couldn't resist one more turn of the knife, Maya's phone buzzed again. A video message. Unknown number. She didn't want to open it, but she did anyway, because fear didn't stop consequences. The video was grainy. Belgrave Salvage, smoke, sirens, bikers lined up, troopers moving in, and on the ground, near the crushed car line where Priest had been, someone's vest lay spread open, patch visible. Priest's patch. A voice over the video, cap-brim man's voice, calm as ever. "You think you won," he said. "You only changed the battlefield." The video ended with a final shot, the Harley, Mercy, loaded onto a flatbed under state police lights. Not stolen now, seized. The trooper beside Maya glanced at her phone screen, then at her. "We'll protect you," he said, and it sounded like he meant it, but Maya's eyes were locked on the last frame she'd seen, the Harley under lights, because she realized something that made her stomach sink. If the Harley was seized, then the club didn't get it back, and if the club didn't get it back, then somebody would come for it again, not in a yard this time, in courtrooms, evidence rooms, on the road. As Maya helped her mother into Mrs. Hanley's car, her own phone lit with one final notification, an incoming call. Not unknown, a saved contact, the number Priest had used. Maya answered with shaking hands. "Priest?" A familiar voice came through, low and steady, alive. "Still breathing," he said. "You did good." Maya's throat tightened. "Where are you?" "Cleaning up," Priest replied. "State boys are taking the sheriff. Deke's gone." Maya's chest tightened. "Gone?" "Ran," Priest said, "but he ran without his boss." Maya stared ahead at the flashing lights and the troopers fanning out across her street. And the Harley. A pause. Then Priest's voice lowered, edged with something real. "That bike was never the point. The point was what was inside it." Maya swallowed. "I opened it." Another pause, shorter this time. "Good," Priest said. Maya blinked. "Good?" "Because now," Priest said, "they can't pretend it doesn't exist." Maya's grip tightened on the phone. "What happens to me?" Priest's voice stayed steady. "You get your mother safe. You tell the truth again if they try to twist it, and you don't walk alone." Maya looked up the street. At the far corner, beyond the troopers, a black truck idled for a single beat, just long enough to be seen. Then it rolled away into traffic like it belonged there. Maya watched it go, jaw clenched, heart steadying into something harder than fear, because she understood the last rule of people like that. They didn't stop. They just changed methods. And now Maya had proof, allies, and a name to hunt. She got into the car beside her mother, shut the door, and as they pulled away, the salvage yard smoke still hung over the horizon like a bruise. Maya didn't look back.